previous to his pastor, his brother Humphrey was pastor here, and then later on, Father Gormley, who visited us many times up at Whitefish, and who was a classmate of my uncle, Father Joe Gibbs. We were raised with the clergy and raised with many professional people. I think that like most altar boys, at one time we entertained thoughts of going on to the priesthood because we had a lot of association with the young priests here at Incarnation. My father was my mentor. I idolized him, and I suppose led me into the profession of medicine. I recall many times his receiving a spiritual bouquet on his birthday, and he'd show this to me as a kid. And he'd say, "Joe, this means more to me than $100. And I'd say, $100? They owe him money. They would never be able to pay him for that. Things like this, I suppose, referred me into that profession. Ironically, after I had finished interning at Hennepin County Medical Center, where my dad had interned in 1917, I had written Bishop Walsh, who was the Marinol and a prisoner of the Japanese for many years, whether he was interested at all in a lay physician coming to China for a short period of time. I was not married, and I was available. He discouraged me to come in as a layperson, but said, "We'd love to have you to go to Marinol and become a priest and then come in to our society as a physician." That never happened. I went out east and took my postgraduate work in obstetrics, and then during the Korean War I was assigned to Newfoundland Air Force Base. We were in med school during the big one, as I tell my kids, from 42 to 46, and we were putting in our time as we expected to do. Fortunately, I met a flight nurse in Newfoundland, and the one I was looking for all my life, and married her, and our first son was born in Canada, province of Newfoundland. My mother was a little bit concerned when she heard I was getting serious with a woman so far away, but when I informed her that her father was a physician and her two twin brothers were both priests, everything was suddenly okay. I practiced medicine in this area for over 40 years. I have a son who followed me in the profession, spent 8 years at Mayo Clinic. I envy what he is doing in the practice today with all of the new innovations and discoveries in the medical field. I have two daughters that are nurses. My youngest daughter, Michelle, graduated from Marquette and is the director of the emergency room at Hennepin County Medical Center. My mother had 50 grandchildren. She proudly displayed a sweater that she had with all of the Hamel children on it, and that sweater. And it was when she would pirouette for people to show them her sweater, they said, "That's too many children, Mrs. Hamel." And she said, "Well, that may be so, but they're all healthy and well and contributing to society." I have great memories of Incarnation. When I have a sleepless night, like we all do occasionally, for one reason or another, I recall wonderful days here from the time I walked on to Incarnation Grade School. My mother took me to school the first day at first grade. By the time she got home, back on 41st and Pleasant, I was sitting on the front steps. I'd come back through the alley. So she took me down again. I did this once more. Well, I don't know whether she whacked me all the way down to 38th Street for the third time. She said, I never could get you to start school, and once you started, you never quit. And it's true. I enjoyed teaching all through my career in medicine. After 40 years in practice, I was invited to join the staff at the University of Minnesota to run the med student program in obstetrics. I loved it. To this day, I try to attend a meeting at least once a week, medical meeting, and devour the New England Medical Journal every week when it comes. I could never separate myself from my profession. I suppose what they call a perpetual student, or my kids might say some kind of a nut, but in any event, I would never dissuade any of my family or anybody from going into the profession of medicine. It's a service-connected, it is fairly well compensated, there's great satisfaction, and you encounter people every day. To this day, everywhere I go, I am approached by people almost embarrassed by saying, oh, Dr. Hamel, you delivered 2 of my kids, or you delivered 4 of my kids. And my first cousin, St. Paul, who was a retired judge, reminded me that I delivered all 10 of his children. As I recall, the corner of 38th and Pleasant was occupied by everything associated with Incarnation. There was the convent, which was on the northwest corner, where the nuns would file across the street. They'd go across Pleasant and then across 38th Street, 2 by 2, for Mass and every Sunday. On the northeast corner was the main building. I think it was erected in about 1922, somewhere there. Later on, they added an addition, a 4-room addition on the north side of that building. When we were approximately in 7th grade, they built the new school on the southwest corner. Prior to that, there was a wooden building where they had a kind of a daycare or kindergarten, and next door, I remember Dr. Laurent, who was a general practitioner, lived next to the school. That was later torn down, and that today is occupied by the new school above the parking lot, which is occupied by the Latinos, as I recall. The church was always here. Next to the church was the pastor's house, and I recall next to him was the Long house. Mr. Dick Long was a violinist down at the Nicollet Hotel for many years. I think I knew 50% of the people from 41st and Pleasant down to 38th Street. I could name to this day, as I went down there today, visiting Incarnation down Pleasant Avenue, and I pointed out Father Bartholomew lived here, Sister Rochester lived here, and so forth, right down